John had finished his long shift on the outer station. The metal corridors were quiet, only the hum of machines filling the air. Most workers were still busy at their posts, and the living quarters were empty. He moved through the hallway, his boots echoing against the steel floor. He expected nothing unusual when he opened the door to his room. It was supposed to be just another night. A meal, some rest, maybe a message from Earth. But the moment the door slid open, he froze. Inside, the small room stood Lyra, his alien maid. She was tall and slender, her skin a soft silver blue that glowed faintly under the dim lights. But John did not freeze because of her beauty. He froze because she was half-dressed. Her uniform was partly off, hanging from one arm, leaving her. Chest bare in a way that should have embarrassed both of them. Yet embarrassment was not the strongest feeling in the room. No, what struck John most was the look in her eyes. She wasn't surprised to see him. She wasn't even shy. She looked terrified. Her hands were clutched tightly against her chest, hiding something small but glowing faintly. For a moment, John did not speak. The silence was sharp, heavy. He only heard the hum of the door sliding shut behind him. Lyra stepped back, as if she had been caught in a crime. "Lyra," John finally said, his voice low, "what are you hiding?" The alien girl shook her head quickly, silver hair falling across her face. You were not supposed to see this." Her voice trembled, her words almost broken. John's eyes narrowed. It was not the fact she was half-dressed that held his attention. It was the strange light leaking through her fingers. Whatever she held was alive, or at least active. "Show me," John demanded, taking a slow step closer. "No," Lyra shouted. Suddenly, louder than he had ever heard her speak, she backed into the corner of the room, pressing the hidden object against her chest. Her bare skin shimmered in fear, alien markings across her shoulders glowing faintly. "Please, you cannot know. If you know, you will be in danger too." "Danger?" John frowned. She had always been quiet, obedient. A maid assigned by the station. Authority to keep things in order. She cooked, cleaned, and hardly spoke unless asked. Never once had she shown defiance. Never once had she looked like this, like a hunted animal. "What is it?" He pressed again, his voice calmer now. "Are you in trouble?" Her lips trembled. She wanted to speak, but something held her back. Instead, her eyes darted to the door as if she expected someone else to come crashing in at any moment. John's heart began to race. Something was wrong, deeply wrong. "You think I can ignore this?" he asked, his voice harder now. "You're in my quarters, hiding something glowing in your hands, half-dressed and terrified. Tell me, Lyra, before I call security." Her eyes widened. At the mention of security, she dropped to her knees in front of him, clutching his leg with one trembling hand. "Please, not them, not security. They will kill me. They will kill you too." John froze. Her words struck him like a hammer. Security? Kill him? This was no ordinary secret. For a long moment, the room felt smaller, darker. John looked down at her trembling figure, half-covered, begging him with desperate eyes. He knelt slowly, lowering his voice. "Then tell me the truth. What are you hiding, Lyra?" Her breathing was sharp, fast, almost panicked. Finally, with shaking fingers, she lifted her hands just enough for him to see a crack of light dot. It was not a simple object. It was not a toy, not a tool, not something she had stolen from the kitchen or the supply room. It was a crystal shaped like a shard of frozen lightning. Its glow pulsed softly, as if it were alive. The air itself seemed heavier around it, like it bent reality. John's mouth went dry. He had never seen anything like it. "What is that?" He whispered. Lyra quickly closed her hands again, hiding it from view. Tears shimmered in her alien eyes. It is something I should never have touched, something that must never be found. John's chest tightened. His instincts told him this was not just some forbidden trinket. This was bigger, much bigger. He leaned closer, his voice steady but heavy with tension. And yet, you hold it. Why? Her answer was only one word, spoken in a broken whisper. Survival. The room went silent again. John stared at her, his mind racing. A maid, half-dressed, holding something glowing and dangerous, begging him not to call security. And the way she said that word survival, it was not just about her dot. It was about something larger dot before he could speak again. The crystal in her hands pulsed brighter, casting long shadows across the walls. It seemed to react to his presence, humming faintly like it recognized him. Lyra gasped and clutched it tighter, her silver-blue skin glowing brighter with fear. John's heart pounded. Something told him this night would not end simply. He had walked in expecting rest. Instead, he had stepped into a secret that could change everything. John did not move for a long moment. His eyes stayed locked on Lyra's trembling hands. The glow from the hidden crystal leaked between her fingers like light from a dying star. Lyra, he said slowly, carefully, you have to explain. What is this thing? Why are you so afraid? Her silver-blue skin shimmered in the dim light, and her voice came out as a whisper. If you know, you will be hunted. If you see too much, you will never be safe again. John frowned. He had been a soldier before. He had faced battles, danger, and blood. But this was different. She was terrified in a way he had never seen before. You think I can just walk away now? He asked, his tone firm. I've seen it. I can't unsee it. Tell me, Lyra. She looked at him for a long moment, her eyes filled with pain and fear. Then, with trembling hands, she slowly opened her palms. The crystal lay across her smooth fingers, glowing softly. It was not large, but the energy it carried seemed endless. Tiny sparks danced inside it, moving like lightning trapped in glass. John felt the hairs on his arms rise, as if the object was alive. The moment the crystal was fully revealed, the air in the room grew heavy. John could feel it like pressure in his chest, like gravity pulling harder. What is it? He asked. Again, his voice quieter now. Lyra swallowed hard. It is called the Heart of Worlds. It should not be here. It should not even exist. John blinked. The name sounded more like legend than fact. And why do you have it? Tears welled in her alien eyes. Because I had no choice. Because, without it, I would already be dead. Her words cut through him. He stared at the crystal, then back at her. Why would something like this be with a maid? This isn't right. Who are you really, Lyra? Her lips trembled. Finally, she spoke the truth. I am not only a maid. That was only a mask. I am the last of my bloodline. My people were destroyed, hunted to the edge of extinction. And this, she lifted, the glowing shard higher, is all that remains of us. John's mind reeled. He had thought of her as quiet, simple, maybe even shy. But now she stood before him as something far greater, someone carrying a history that could shatter the galaxy, your bloodline? He pressed. What do you mean? Lyra's voice grew bitter, heavy with sorrow. I was born in a palace. My father was king of the Velari Dominion. But when our enemies rose against us, they came with fire and fleets. We had no allies. Number. One came to help us. My family was killed. I was only a child when they hid me away, when they gave me to humans to live as nothing more than a servant. John's chest tightened. He had heard of the Velari once, long ago. They were whispered about in trade routes, a proud species, brilliant and powerful. And then they had vanished, wiped from history. Everyone thought it was just another alien war. But here was living proof their last heir, standing in his quarters, half-dressed and holding a glowing relic. "You mean to tell me," John said, his voice low, "that the Velari are gone? And you are the last?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, and this crystal is more than history. It is the last weapon, the last memory of my people. If the wrong hands touch it, entire worlds could burn." John stared at the shard again. Something inside him whispered that she wasn't lying. The weight in the room, the way it pulsed like a living heart, it was no ordinary object. "Why show me this?" he asked. "Why not keep it hidden forever?" Her eyes met his. "Because it has chosen you." John froze. "What?" "The heart of worlds reacts to humans," Lyra said, her voice shaking. "It does not react to me. It glowed brighter when you walked in. It reached for you. That means you are bound to it now, whether you like it or not." A chill ran down John's spine. He looked at the shard again, and indeed it pulsed brighter in his presence, the light beating like a second heartbeat. Before he could answer, a sound broke through the silence. Thud. It came from the corridor outside. Heavy boots. Several of them. Lyra's eyes widened. She rushed to him, grabbing his arm. "They're here. They've tracked it." John's stomach dropped. "Who?" "The hunters," she whispered. "The same ones who destroyed my people. They found me. And if they see you with me, they'll kill you too." Another sound echoed outside. This time it was sharper metal against metal. The unmistakable click of weapons being loaded. John's soldier instincts surged awake. The danger was real. He grabbed Lyra by the arm, pulling her toward the back door. "You're not staying here," he said firmly. "But no arguments. You've dragged me into this already. If they're after you, then I have no choice but to fight." Lyra looked at him with wide eyes, tears running down her cheeks. "You don't understand. This is not just about me. If they take the crystal, they will not stop. They will come for your people too. Humanity will not be spared." John tightened his grip on her arm. The sound of boots grew louder outside. His heart raced, but his voice was steady. "Then we make sure they never get it." The door lights flashed red. Someone was trying to override the lock. John clenched his fists. This night had turned into a war he never expected. But as the crystal pulsed brighter in his presence, one thing became clear. This wasn't just her fight anymore. Asterisk, the red warning lights on the door kept flashing. Each blink was a countdown. Each second was closer to the hunters breaking in. John pulled Lyra back into the shadows of the small room, his soldier's mind racing. He had faced enemies before, but this was different. He didn't even know who they were or how many were outside. "Lyra," he said quickly, his voice low, "you need to tell me everything right now. No more hiding. What are we dealing with? Who are they?" Her silver blue eyes shimmered with fear. She clutched the crystal tightly, her body trembling. "They are called the Kether Hunters. They destroyed my people. They kill without mercy. And now they are here for me. And for this." John's eyes narrowed. "Why? What's so important about that shard?" Lyra's voice cracked. "It is not just a shard. It is the key to a power hidden across the stars. My people guarded it for thousands of years. If the Kether gain it, they will control entire worlds. They will rule through fear and fire. No one will stop them." John stared at her. The words sounded unreal, like the kind of tales old soldiers told after too many drinks. But the crystals, glow, the fear in her voice, and the boots outside the door made it all too real. "And you've been hiding this," John said slowly. She nodded, shame filling her face. "Yes, I was placed here because no one would suspect a maid. I hid among humans, waiting, hoping they would never find me. But the heart has awakened again. It responds to you, John. That is why they came. John felt a chill. He glanced at the glowing shard, pulsing brighter as if it were alive, breathing in sync with his own chest. He swallowed hard. You're telling me this thing wants me? Her trembling hands pressed the crystal against his palm. The moment it touched his skin, the light blazed. A hum filled the room, a sound so deep it shook his bones. Lyra gasped. Yes, it has chosen you. John's eyes widened. He pulled his hand back, but the glow followed him, clinging to his presence like a shadow. I didn't ask for this. No one ever does, she whispered. The sound of metal grinding filled the air. The door lock was almost gone. John clenched his jaw. So, I'm holding the key to galactic destruction, and outside that door are killers who want it. Wonderful. Lyra grabbed his arm, desperation in her voice. Please, you must not let them have it. Even if it means death, you cannot surrender it. Do you understand? Before John could answer, the door hissed. A crack of light split the frame. Cold voices barked orders outside. They're coming in, John muttered, scanning the room. He spotted a small service hatch near the floor. This way. He dropped to his knees, pulling it open. Lyra crawled in first, clutching the crystal tight. John followed, sealing the hatch behind them just as the door to his quarters exploded. Inward, the tunnel was narrow, barely wide enough for them to move. Darkness swallowed them, broken only by the faint glow of the crystal. The sound of armored boots thundered above them. John crawled fast, whispering, Where does this lead? To the lower decks, Lyra answered breathlessly. Maintenance. Corridors. We can hide there for a little while. They moved quickly through the tight passage until they reached an opening into a larger chamber filled with humming pipes and machinery. John finally stood up, brushing dust from his arms. For a moment, there was silence, just the sound of machines and their heavy breathing. But John turned to Lyra sharply. Enough running. I need the full truth. What exactly does this thing do? Lyra hesitated, then held the crystal up. Its light reflected in her tear-stained face. The heart of worlds is more than a weapon. It is knowledge, power, creation itself. My ancestors said it could either save civilizations or destroy them completely. John's voice hardened. And the Kether want destruction. Yes, she said quietly. And now that it has chosen you, they will stop at nothing to take you alive. They need a human to unlock it. Without you, the crystal is silent. John froze. Her words hit him like a blade. So I'm not just in the way, I'm the target. Her eyes filled with sorrow. I am sorry, John. I did not mean to drag you into this, but fate has already chosen. You cannot walk away now. John let out a bitter laugh. Fate? That's a word people use when they're out of choices. He rubbed his temple, trying to think. So what happens if I refuse? If I just throw it away? The crystal pulsed sharply in his direction, as if angry. Lyra shook her head. It will return to you. It is bound to you now. You cannot escape it. The weight of her words pressed down on him. A moment ago, he was just a tired man, coming back from work. Now, he was carrying the future of worlds in his hands. Before he could reply, a loud clang echoed through the maintenance chamber. Both froze. Voices. Heavy boots. They're tracking us, John muttered, pulling Lyra behind a cluster of pipes. Lyra's hands shook around the glowing shard. Her voice was a whisper. If they catch us, it is the end. The hunters' shadows stretched across the walls as they entered the chamber. John's pulse pounded in his ears. He looked at the crystal in her hands, its glow shining like fire in the dark. He didn't want it, didn't ask for it, But now he had no choice. He whispered to himself, steadying his breath. Then they won't catch us. Asterisk the shadows of... The hunters stretched long across the walls of the maintenance chamber. Heavy boots pounded closer, metal clanging against metal. Their voices were low and cold, speaking in a language John did not understand, but the tone was clear. They were tracking. They were hunting. John pressed his back against the steel pipes, pulling Lara close beside him. He could feel her trembling, not from the cold, but from fear. The crystal in her hands glowed faintly, threatening to give them away. Dim it? John whispered urgently. I can't, she replied, her voice breaking. It reacts to you. The closer you are, the brighter it becomes. John cursed under his breath. That meant he was a walking beacon. The hunters entered fully now. 4 of them, tall and armored, their helmets shining with pale red visors. Strange weapons hung from their shoulders, sharp and alien. John recognized the stance. They were trained. Disciplined killers. One of the hunters paused, scanning the room. Its helmet tilted slightly, as if sniffing the air. Then it hissed in its strange tongue and raised a weapon. John's instincts exploded. He grabbed Lyra by the wrist. Run! They bolted from cover, boots slamming against the steel floor. A burst of plasma fire lit the chamber, scorching the pipes where they had just been hiding. The air filled with smoke and sparks. Faster! John shouted, pulling Lyra down a narrow corridor. The hunters followed immediately, their footsteps like thunder behind them. The station's alarms began to scream, warning of weapons discharge. Red lights flashed along the walls, painting the escape route in chaos. John's soldier training took over. He knew how to run in zigzags, how to use cover. He shoved Lyra ahead, keeping himself between her and the hunters. Each time a plasma bolt screamed past, he forced her down another turn, but the hunters were relentless. They moved like machines, never slowing, never missing a step. Where are we going? John demanded, his breath sharp. The lower airlocks. Lyra gasped. If we can reach the docks, we might escape. Might? John shot back, dodging another plasma blast that melted a wall beside him. She didn't answer. She just kept running. They reached a stairwell, spiraling downward into darkness. John shoved her through first, then followed, pulling the hatch shut behind them. He could already hear the hunters cutting through it with plasma. They're not stopping, John muttered. They never do, Lyra whispered Dot as they reached the bottom. The air grew colder, the metal walls slick with condensation. The maintenance decks here were almost abandoned, filled with pipes, cables, and the hum of generators. John stopped for a moment, pulling Lyra against a wall. Listen to me. You need to tell me how to fight them. Weak points, something. Her silver blue eyes met his. Their armor is strong, their weapons stronger, but they fear one thing. What? She hesitated, then held up the glowing crystal. This. John's eyes widened. Are you insane? That's the one thing they want. Yes, she said. But it is also the one thing they fear. The heart of worlds can burn. Them if used with human touch. That is why they hunt you. They cannot claim it themselves. They need you alive. John stared at her, then at the shard pulsing in her hands, his fists clenched. So either I run forever, or I fight with this thing. Before she could answer, the stairwell hatch above exploded inward. The hunters poured in, their weapons raised. John's heart pounded. There was no time to think. He grabbed the shard, its light blazing as it touched his skin. A deep hum filled the corridor, vibrating the metal walls. The hunters froze for a split second, their visors flickering with static. Then they roared, charging forward. John held the crystal high. Light erupted outward in a burst, so bright it blinded them all. The air shook with power, a sound like thunder rolling through the station. The hunters stumbled, their armor sparking as if struck by lightning. Lyra gasped. "It listens to you." John didn't know how he did it, but somehow the shard responded to his will. He thought of pushing the hunters back, and the light obeyed. A shockwave burst forward, slamming into the armored figures and sending them crashing into the walls. For the first time, the hunters hesitated. "Move!" John shouted. He pulled Lyra again, sprinting through the blinding haze. They ran deeper into the maintenance decks, the sound of the hunters recovering. Behind them, their roars echoed through the tunnels. Furious and inhuman, not finally. They reached a hatch leading to the docking levels. John slammed the controls, forcing it open. Cold air swept through, carrying the faint smell of space fuel and metal dock beyond. Lay the docking bay, filled with shadows of ships and machinery. But as they stepped through, Lyra froze. John followed her gaze, and his blood ran cold. Dozens of hunters were already waiting in the bay. Their red visors glowed in the dark like a field of burning eyes. Lyra's voice broke into a whisper. They brought an entire pack. John's grip tightened on the crystal, its light pulsing like a heartbeat in his hand. He knew there was no turning back now. The hunters began to close in from all sides. John realized this chase was only the beginning. The docking bay was a trap. Dozens of hunters stood waiting in the shadows, their red visors glowing like burning coals. Weapons hummed in their hands, aimed at John and Lyra. The moment the hatch closed behind them, they were surrounded. John lifted the crystal, its light pulsing stronger with every heartbeat. The hunters hissed, stepping back slightly, but none lowered their weapons. Lyra gripped his arm, her voice trembling. "They will not kill you. Not yet. They need you alive to unlock it. But if they capture you, it will be worse than death." John kept his eyes on the hunters. "So what? I'm supposed to fight them all with this thing? I don't even know how it works." The nearest hunter stepped forward, its voice harsh and metallic. "Human, the heart of worlds is not yours. Hand it over. Come with us, and you will live." John barked a bitter laugh. "I've heard that line before. It never ends well." The hunter tilted its head. "You cannot resist forever. The heart will consume you. Give it to us. We will use it as it was meant to be used." Lyra whispered sharply. "Do not listen. They twist everything. The heart was never meant for them. It was meant for your kind." John turned his head sharply. "My kind? What do you mean?" Her silver blue eyes burned with urgency. "Don't you see? The reason it reacts to you, the reason it rejects me. It was always bound to humans. My people guarded it, yes, but it was never ours. It was always waiting for you." The words struck him hard. "That doesn't make sense. I'm no one special. Just a man who wanted a quiet life. But even." As he spoke, the crystal pulsed brighter, its glow spreading through his arm, warming his chest. It was alive, and it was choosing him. The lead hunter snarled. "Lies. The heart belongs to the strong, to those willing to use it without fear." John's grip tightened. He looked at the hunters, then at Lyra, trembling beside him, her half torn. Maid's uniform still clinging to her slender form. She had risked everything to keep the shard safe, and now it had chosen him. He realized there was no walking away. The hunters raised their weapons. The leader barked an order. Plasma hummed, ready to fire. John's soldier instincts screamed at him, but instead of aiming a gun, his hand tightened around the crystal. He thought of shielding Lyra. He thought of pushing the hunters back. Crystal blazed. A dome of shimmering light burst out around him and Lyra, a barrier of pure energy. Plasma bolts struck it and ricocheted off, lighting the bay with sparks. The hunters roared in anger, firing again and again, but the shield held. Lyra gasped, her voice full of awe. You are controlling it. I'm not controlling anything, John said through gritted teeth. It's doing it on its own. But deep inside, he knew that wasn't true. The crystal was reacting to his will, his choices, his determination to protect. The hunters stopped firing. The leader stepped forward again, its voice cold. You cannot protect them forever. The heart will drain you. It will burn you from the inside. Hand it over, human, or you will suffer. The crystal pulsed harder, its glow burning bright enough to blind. John felt heat spreading through his veins, fire in his chest, power building like a storm. His knees shook under the weight of it. He could feel the truth. The shard was not endless. It demanded strength. It demanded sacrifice. He looked at Lyra. She stared back at him with desperate hope. If you give it to them, humanity will fall. If you keep it, you will suffer. You must choose, John. His throat tightened. The crystal thrummed like a heartbeat in his palm. As if waiting for his decision, the hunters raised their weapons again, moving closer, their visors glowing blood. Red Dot John clenched his jaw. And I choose to fight. He lifted the shard high. A roar of energy exploded outward, a wave of light crashing into the hunters. The bay shook violently, metal beams groaning as the force hurled armored bodies backward. Some hunters slammed into walls. Others fell, sparks spraying from their armor. For the first time, the hunters screamed, not in rage, but in fear. But the power tore through John, too. His vision blurred. His chest burned like fire. The crystal demanded more of him. With every surge, he staggered, nearly dropping it. John, Lyra cried, grabbing his arm. Stop, it will kill you, he gasped, his voice rough. If it means saving humanity, then so be it. The light blazed one last time, flooding the docking bay with brilliance. Hunters fell back, retreating into the shadows. Their leader snarled, pointing at John. This is not the end, human. The heart will destroy you, and when it does, we will take it from your corpse. Then they vanished into the smoke, leaving only silence behind. John dropped to one knee, his chest heaving, the crystal dimming in his palm. Sweat poured down his face. His strength was nearly gone. Lyra knelt beside him, her eyes wide with fear and awe. You chose humanity over yourself. But now, they will never stop coming. John stared at the fading glow of the shard. He could still feel its power thrumming in his bones. He realized Lyra was right. He had made his choice. And now, humanity's fate rested in his hands. Asterisk the docking bay was silent for a moment after the hunters retreated. Smoke hung in the air, and the smell of burning metal stung John's nose. He knelt on one knee, sweat pouring down his face, the crystal dim in his palm. Lyra held him tightly, her silver blue hands trembling. You cannot keep using it like that, she whispered. It will consume you. John took a deep breath, forcing himself to stand. His legs felt like stone, but he refused to fall. If it means keeping them away, then I'll burn before I surrender it. Lyra shook her head, tears shining in her alien eyes. No, that is not what the heart was made for. It destroys those who use it with only anger and fear. But with the right will, with the right heart, it can save instead of destroy. John frowned. Save? How? She looked at him with quiet certainty. It chose you because humanity is different. My people used it for power. The Kethers seek it for control. But you fight to protect. That is the truth the heart has waited for. Before John could answer, the sound of thunder filled the bay. The far doors exploded inward, and the hunters returned this time with more soldiers, heavy weapons glowing like molten suns. At their center stood a massive figure, taller than the rest, its armor black as night, its red visor blazing like fire. The leader had come. Its voice cut through the air like a blade. "Human, you are weak. The heart will eat you alive. Surrender, and your death will be swift. Resist, and you will suffer before the end." John raised the crystal, its glow flickering. His arm shook, but his voice was steady. "Funny, you've already had your chance to take it. You failed." The hunters roared and charged. Plasma fire erupted, scorching the bay. John clenched the shard tight. But instead of forcing it into another blast of violence, he remembered Lyra's words. Not only anger, not only destruction. Protect. He thought of Earth, of the men and women he had fought beside in past wars, of humanity's endless struggle to survive, to rise again, no matter how many times they were struck down. The crystal answered. Its glow turned white, pure, and blinding. Heat and light surged through his body, not burning this time, but steady, alive, his chest filled with strength instead of pain. A wave of energy spread outward, but instead of fire, it became a shield. A vast dome of light expanded across the bay, wrapping around Lyra, the ships, even the station itself. Plasma bolts struck it and vanished like sparks in the wind. The hunters staggered, their weapons useless. The leader roared, charging forward. With a blade of energy, John stepped into its path. The crystal pulsed, and a spear of light formed in his hand. Solid and real. Their weapons clashed, sparks flying across the bay. The leader pressed hard, its strength monstrous, but John's feet did not move. "You're wrong," John growled, pushing back with all his will. "I'm not fighting for myself. I'm fighting for humanity, and that's something you'll never understand." The crystal blazed. The spear of light shattered the hunter's blade and pierced through its armor. The massive figure screamed as its body cracked apart, collapsing into ash and smoke. The other hunters froze. For the first time, they felt fear. John raised the crystal high, its light flooding the docking bay like a rising sun. His voice thundered, strong and clear. "Tell your masters this. Humanity is no one's pawn. We do not bow. We do not break. If you come for us again, you will face not just me, but all of us." The hunters hissed in fury, but they did not advance. One by one, they retreated into the shadows, dragging their wounded. Within moments, the bay was empty, leaving only silence. John lowered the crystal, its light dimming, the power settling within him like a steady heartbeat. His knees wavered, but he stayed standing. Lyra approached him slowly, her eyes wide with awe. She fell to her knees before him, her voice soft but filled with reverence. "It is true. Humanity was always meant to carry the heart. You have proven it." John shook his head, exhaustion heavy in his voice. "I'm no hero, Lyra. I just refuse to let them win." She looked up at him, her silver hair glowing in the fading light. "And that is why you are different. That is why the galaxy will change because of humans like you." John stared at the shard, its glow now calm, steady, almost like it was waiting. He knew the fight wasn't over. The hunters would return. The galaxy would come to fear or worship the heart. But for now, he had made a stand. He had shown them that humanity would not be broken. He slipped the crystal into his hand, its hum soft against his palm. "Then let them come. We'll be ready." Lyra bowed her head. Not as a servant, not as a maid, but as someone who had seen the truth. Together, they walked out of the smoking bay, no longer just fugitives, but bearers of a new destiny. For the galaxy had learned something it would never forget. Humans fight not only to survive, they fight for each other. Asterisk.